The topic for today is fatty protein diets, a very controversial form of eating. In a fatty protein diet, आप एक macronutrient जो कि carbohydrates है अपने डाइट से बिल्कुल eliminate कर सकते हैं. There are two types of energy, aerobic and anaerobic. So all forms of aerobic energy can be produced by ketones. जब भी मैं बहुत intense exercise 1 या 2 मिनट या max 3 मिनट तक करता हूँ, that is called anaerobic energy is required for that. That is production of anaerobic energy. Ketones cannot produce anaerobic energy because anaerobic energy lacks oxygen and oxygen is mandatory for ketones to function. How can you produce anaerobic energy without having carbohydrates? The body produces its own glucose from the triglyceride. The body does not even touch the fat stores which is in abundance. आपकी body में इतना सारा fat available है, आप वो use कीजिए. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Simplifying Nutrition with me, Samit. I'm the founder and CEO of New Life. I've spent 20 years studying, researching and applying the science of nutraceuticals as it relates to elevating human performance. The topic for today is fatty protein diets, a very controversial form of eating, popularly known in the industry as a keto diet, which it is not. And I'm going to give you a few key insights into how this eating protocol works, how it's worked beautifully for me, and how it's worked beautifully for a lot of people who follow this approach to eating. We all know that हमारा जो ancestry है, it's a hunter-gatherer ancestry, which used to survive and thrive on fasting and feasting. Fasting because हम बहुत दिन तक खाने के बगैर भटकते रहते थे और जब भी शिकार मिलता था, we used to feast like crazy. हम जो खाते थे ज़्यादातर वो एनिमल किंगडम का फूड होता था जो कि प्राइमरीली फैट और प्रोटीन होता था किसी भी अगर आप एनिमल को खाएंगे तो. उसके साथ साथ यस जो भी बेरीज और फ्रूट्स हमें मिलते थे डिपेंडिंग ऑन किस रीजन ऑफ द अर्थ में हम थे वो भी हमारी डाइट का एक पार्ट था. अभी ये कॉन्सेप्ट को लेके जो है बहुत सारे रिसर्चर्स ने इन द 80s एंड 90s ये स्टडी किया कि क्यों लाइफस्टाइल डिजीजेस और हार्ट डिजीज और डायबिटीज़ बढ़ती जा रही है. 10,000 साल पहले केवल एग्रीकल्चर हमारी सोसाइटी में आया जब हम एनिमल्स को डोमेस्टिकेट करने लगे. ग्रेन्स और बहुत सारे कार्बोहाइड्रेट बेस्ड फूड सोर्सेज हमने इन्वेंट किए एज अ स्पीशीज़ और वो हमने अपने डाइट में इंक्लूड किए और पिछले 100 साल में अल्ट्रा प्रोसेस्ड फूड्स खाने के कारण बहुत सारे लाइफस्टाइल डिजीजेस भी होने लगे. नाउ just a little bit of context, but now let's get back into the fatty protein diet approach to eating. In a fatty protein diet, आप एक मैक्रोन्यूट्रिएंट जो कि कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स है अपने डाइट से बिल्कुल एलिमिनेट कर सकते हैं. ये हमारा बिलीफ है. अभी बहुत सारे न्यूट्रिशनिस्ट आर्ग्यू करेंगे कि अगर आपने अपना प्राइमरी एनर्जी सोर्स जो कि उनके बिलीफ में कार्बोहाइड्रेट है अगर आपने अपने डाइट से निकाल दिया तो आपकी बॉडी में एनर्जी कहाँ से पैदा होगी. सो आई वांट टू गिव यू अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ इनसाइट इनटू व्हाई दैट इज अ फ्लॉड theory and why your body can beautifully function on fat and protein and fulfill all its processes. Now, protein, as you know, as I had also mentioned in my other podcast, is primarily a tissue rebuilding and repair macronutrient, and that is what its primary function is. Fat, on the other end, can perform all your energy functions in your body beautifully without even an ounce of carbohydrate being present. The main argument for this theory is कि अगर आपकी बॉडी में कार्बोहाइड्रेट नहीं है तो जो वो वाले सेल्स हैं जिनमें ग्लूकोज मैंडेटरी है वो कैसे काम करेंगे. कौन से हैं ये सेल्स. 2 किस्म के सेल्स हैं आपकी बॉडी में जो ग्लूकोज के बिना बिल्कुल फंक्शन नहीं कर सकते. एक है आरबीसीज या रेड ब्लड सेल्स जिनको ग्लूकोज की जरूरत है क्योंकि दे लैक अ माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया इज नेसेसरी फॉर एरोबिक रेस्पिरेशन एंड रेड ब्लड सेल्स लैक अ माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. And the other one is muscle cells जिनमें जो anaerobic respiration है in the absence of oxygen जब भी आपको ATP जनरेट करना होता है तो उसके लिए आपको फिर से ग्लूकोज ही लगता है. वो काम फैटी एसिड या कीटोन से नहीं हो सकता. Hold that thought. Let's quickly go into how fatty acids and how fats are metabolized in the body and how your nutrient provisioning cycle actually works. When you ingest a fat, the fat is broken down into triglycerides. Triglycerides means 3 molecules of fatty acids, 3 fatty acids joined to a glycerol backbone. That's a triglyceride and that is the form in which your body metabolizes fats, the fats which you eat. Good fats or bad fats is a separate issue. All the fats which you eat are stored as triglycerides. They are stored in wherever you have fat on your body. Your body fat will be stored in form of triglycerides. Now, it will be stored, the part which is not used will be stored the part which is required for energy will be called upon for providing energy. How is that energy provisioned? Is that when you have your fats broken down into triglycerides, broken down into fatty acids, those fatty acids can directly provide you energy. Again, there are two types of energy, aerobic and anaerobic. We are talking of aerobic energy here. Both aerobic and anaerobic energy is generated through ATP. That's a common factor. However, fatty acids can provide you aerobic energy. Furthermore, the fatty acids are converted to ketones in the liver to prepare to produce an even more superior source than fatty acid, which is known as ketones, which is actually the fourth macronutrient. So, I consume fat broken down into triglycerides, broken down into fatty acids, converted to ketones, and ketones can provide you energy for all cells which have mitochondria within your body except muscle cells, and I will explain why. All the cells in your body which have mitochondria except RBCs which do not have a mitochondria can produce energy through ketones beautifully. They do not need glucose. So all forms of aerobic energy can be produced by ketones. Only anaerobic energy cannot be produced by ketones. Anaerobic energy वो होती है जो कि बहुत intense burst of sudden energy जिस चीज में लगती है, that is called anaerobic energy. अभी जैसे मैं आपसे एक बात कर रहा हूँ, एक पॉडकास्ट रिकॉर्ड कर रहा हूँ, या मैं एक बुक पढ़ रहा हूँ, या मैं जस्ट कैजुअल वॉक ले रहा हूँ, that is aerobic energy. That requires aerobic energy. जब भी मैं बहुत intense exercise 1 या 2 मिनट या max 3 मिनट तक करता हूँ, that is called anaerobic energy is required for that. That is production of anaerobic energy. उसके लिए ketones नहीं काम कर सकते. Ketones cannot produce anaerobic energy because anaerobic energy lacks oxygen and oxygen is mandatory for ketones to function. So, now we come to the most critical point of this podcast, which is the number one factor what a nutritionist would argue, that how can you produce anaerobic energy without having carbohydrates? Absolutely true, you need glucose, and the body produces its own glucose from the triglyceride. The body is a very intelligent mechanism. It utilizes the glycerol and combines it with a lactate, which is produced naturally during anaerobic respiration, lactic acid. You heard of lactic acid? Lactate and glycerol will react, and the body will produce its own glucose to fuel your anaerobic activities, store it as muscle glycogen, and it will keep on calling upon more and more glycerol from the tons of fat stores which everybody has. And you can produce any amount of glucose, at least much more than if you were a pure carbohydrate eater. If you eat carbohydrates, your primary energy source is glucose. Your glucose tank is 300, 400 or max 500 grams. It keeps depleting. You have to keep on feeding yourself with glucose. The body does not even touch the fat stores, which is in abundance. आपकी body में इतना सारा fat available है, आप वो use कीजिए. आपका lipolytic effect भी ज़्यादा होगा, आपका fat loss भी automatically ज़्यादा होगा, क्योंकि आप अपने खुद के बॉडी के फैटी एसिड्स को फैट एडिपोसाइट्स में से कॉल करके उसका आप खुद का कार्बोहाइड्रेट बना सकते हैं. एंड दिस इज द सेंट्रल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ फैटी प्रोटीन डाइट्स. डू योर ओन रिसर्च एंड डू कंसिडर इट. दिस इज समित साइनिंग आउट फ्रॉम हियर. थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग. नमस्ते.